Today, we're unpacking AI's expanded influence in the games industry. For better or worse, it's literally rewriting how we play. And like you, I'm interested in what this means for both the industry and for us gamers. Tech and gaming can change overnight, so I lean on a few trusted outlets, like Christopher Dring's The Game Business, where in a recent issue he discusses if the video games media can survive. If you thought that was ironic given his platform, I'm right there with you, and that's the reason why the article piqued my interest. While he touches on whether niche publications are the future and if subscription models can sustain them, two particular topics resonated with me and inspired this entire video. He discusses the need for these publications to break their dependency on Google and the all-knowing algorithm to drive traffic. The irony here hit pretty hard as I uploaded this very video into the YouTube void and hoping that very same algorithm drives traffic to my content. But the piece that really jumped off the page was how AI is threatening games media in a way that I would have never considered, which I'll circle back to towards the end of this video. It got me thinking about how AI in gaming has evolved, especially with the big announcements we've seen just this year. And if we haven't met before, I'm Suk, an accountant who only puts his controller down for spreadsheets. Let's get into it. AI in video games isn't anything new. In fact, it's been the basis of video games since some of the very first titles. In the 70s, Pong's computer opponent's paddle was programmed to follow a simple script, move towards the ball's position, laying the groundwork for AI in video games. In the 80s, Pac-Man introduced ghosts that followed distinct behaviors, showcasing early rule-based AI. In the 90s, Mortal Kombat introduced AI opponents with predetermined moves, while Half-Life made it so NPCs reacted dynamically to the player's actions. In the mid-2000s, Fear implemented goal-oriented action planning, where instead of simply reacting to the player, NPCs can anticipate and react to their actions, making their behavior more dynamic and engaging. In the 2010s, Shadow of Mordor introduced the Nemesis system, which allowed NPCs to remember previous encounters with the player and make decisions to create unique interactions. In the 2020s, Dragon's Dogma 2 took advantage of behavioral AI, which let NPCs interact with the player and environment autonomously, to more unexpected incidents where recently players in Fortnite were able to trick Darth Vader's AI into saying racial slurs. I'll circle back to this a little later, but first let's talk about Microsoft's latest advancement in game development. Microsoft's research teams and Xbox Game Studios' Ninja Theory have introduced Muse, the first world and human action model, WHAM for short, a term Microsoft seemingly introduced for the first time with this announcement. Because I was a little confused by what a WHAM is, I dove a little deeper. From what I can gather, it's a type of generative AI designed to understand both a game's environment and rules, the world, and how a player typically interacts within it, the human action. And that's exactly what Muse is. It's been built to help spark new gameplay ideas for game developers by simultaneously creating game visuals and the controller inputs needed to play through them. To train Muse, it analyzed over 1 billion frames of visuals and associated controller inputs from the Xbox One title Bleeding Edge, which represents more than 7 years of continuous actual gameplay. Microsoft does mention that this dataset was ethically sourced with player consent under the game's end-user licensing agreement, which is of course very important because they've made Muse's core technology, sample data, and a WHAM demonstrator tool open source to help push the project along with community support. Using the demonstrator tool, developers can give Muse a short game segment, an image, or even text prompts. From this starting point, Muse can dream up what happens next, generating both the on-screen action and the necessary controller commands. It's capable of offering multiple different outcomes from the same prompt, helping to iterate and brainstorm different ideas from the same core concept. The AI ensures its generated gameplay feels realistic by sticking to the game's fundamentals, the world concept I explained earlier. From there, if a scene is adjusted, Muse can then integrate that feedback and continue building new gameplay sequences. Microsoft is positioning Muse as a creative thought partner for development teams, rather than a system to automate full game creation. It's supposed to help developers rapidly test concepts, explore possibilities, and accelerate early-stage game design, acting as another specialized tool in their toolkit. And this direction seems to be echoed by other Xbox development studios, specifically Compulsion Games, who shed some light on whether there's any internal pressure to integrate this tech into their development process. Guillaume Prevost, head of the Microsoft-owned studio behind the recently released South of Midnight, clarified that Microsoft is not mandating the use of tools like Muse for its internal game development studios. He emphasized his studio's commitment to a handcrafted approach in game development, adding that Xbox leadership hasn't issued any directive requiring them to change that. While he can see AI being useful for very specific early tasks like quickly storyboarding ideas, not for any final game content, they don't plan on becoming heavy AI users because, as Prevost puts it, they're the studio that literally builds their games by hand. In the DNA of the studio that they have, they're very craft-oriented, they're very art-oriented. And most importantly, he said, Microsoft is fine with that. It's up to each studio to decide if and how they use these AI tools. This stance from Compulsion Games aligns with how Microsoft is positioning Muse, where it's meant to serve as a creative assistant for developers, a tool to help with brainstorming and early design, not something to automate the whole game-making process or replace developers. So this no mandate approach from Xbox directly reflects this philosophy of AI as an optional, assistive technology. It really emphasizes that the goal here is to empower developers with choices, not to force new tools on them. Provost's example of using AI for storyboarding fits right in with Muse's aim to help with specific gameplay ideation tasks. Plus, it shows Microsoft's respect for Compulsion's art-oriented and handcrafted approach. Even with no or minimal AI adoption, shows that their broader AI strategy in gaming, including tools like Muse, are designed to be flexible enough to allow studios to develop games in their own unique ways. Compulsion Games stance echoes Microsoft's vision for Muse. AI tools should be valuable, optional resources that studios can choose to enhance their creativity and efficiency, not mandated components that might stifle the development process. For now, and I'm emphasizing the now, that sounds pretty amazing. But here's the unsettling thought you and I are probably both wrestling with. AI tech is advancing at lightning speed. How far off are we from AI building whole games solo, leading to more job cuts and studios shutting down? Many gamers already feel that big budget AAA titles are missing that creative spark, which is why gamers often turn to indie games where studios aren't afraid to take risks and try something new. Now, imagine if major players like Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo pushed AI research to a place where it could generate entire games. I'm doubtful this would boost any sort of creativity, but rather have the complete opposite effect, especially if companies don't prioritize their ethics, which is a problem the industry is already facing. Just look at the recent marathon art controversy at Bungie as a concerning example of what can happen. If AI simply gets good at copying successful formulas, we could end up with a flood of games that feel incredibly similar. Polished for engagement, sure, but lacking any real soul or innovation. This risks a market where original ideas aren't valued, making games feel hollow and repetitive, much like what's happened with Hollywood's over-reliance on reboots over new concepts. But this wave of AI-generated lookalikes wouldn't just make gaming feel empty. It could also devalue the skills of people who make games. If AI can produce good enough art, code, or sound much faster and cheaper, the specialized skills of human developers might become less valuable. This could lead to lower wages, more unstable gig work just managing AI, and fewer sustainable careers, sacrificing that handcrafted quality Provost is so proud of. And that's just on the development side. Gamers themselves could face new kinds of AI-driven manipulation. Picture AI creating these ultra-customized game experiences, not just to entertain, but to subtly pressure you into spending more or doing things that feel ethically questionable. Think of AI characters built to emotionally manipulate you into buying microtransactions. And with AI companions already a thing, this isn't too far-fetched. Or game systems with dynamic difficulties that cleverly guide you towards paying to win. Such approaches would ruin any kind of player trust, normalize predatory practices, making some of those dystopian stories we love to watch in movies or on TV feel a lot less like fiction. It's not that I'm against AI being used as a tool, but with technology this powerful, we need to be sure to set strong ethical guidelines on its use. If we aren't proactive, we're going to run the same risks and experience the same widespread negative effects that other big tech changes, like social media, have unfortunately brought. Now, it's one thing to talk about the potential problems we could run into with AI in gaming, but nothing drives the point home like a real-world example. And we got a perfect one recently with Fortnite's AI Darth Vader, which quickly highlighted some of those ethical and practical challenges we've been discussing. Earlier this month, Epic Games rolled out an interactive Darth Vader in Fortnite that actually recreated James Earl Jones' iconic voice, with his estate's permission, of course. Whether or not he would have wanted to lend his voice to Fortnite is another story entirely. This AI Vader was designed to be fully conversational, allowing players to talk with him and get replies, all powered by Google's Gemini for the responses and 11 Labs for the voice. And if you haven't guessed already, it didn't take long for things to go sideways. Almost immediately after launch, players found AI Vader could easily be made to say cuss words, homophobic slurs, and plenty of other obscenities. Turns out breaking him wasn't all that hard. The AI was surprisingly vulnerable to being misdirected, even with filters supposedly in place. The good news is Epic Games jumped on this incredibly fast. Reports show a hotfix was pushed within hours, with some reports saying within 30 minutes to a couple hours of the issues appearing, to tighten the AI's language filters and prevent further abuse. They also pointed to an existing parental control as a way to disable interaction with AI Vader entirely. The obvious fallout from this was that players and the public alike found that, even with his estate's permission, hearing James Earl Jones' legendary voice twisted by AI to spew profanity and hate felt disrespectful to his life's work. Unsurprisingly, the Actors Union SAG-AFTRA, which is a Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, quickly filed an unfair labor practice complaint against Epic Games. Their argument went deeper than just the inappropriate language. They alleged Epic used AI to replace human actors, even those who'd voiced Vader in games before, without any consultation with the union. This ties directly into current industry strikes and widespread fears among voice actors about AI job replacement. The union emphasized in no uncertain terms that they must protect their right to bargain when AI performs work traditionally done by their members. This incident highlighted how vulnerable even sophisticated conversational AI can be to manipulation, especially in real-time interactions with a large user base. It raised questions about whether this tech is ready for mass market games without extremely tight and maybe even currently unachievable guardrails. Some people found the off-script AI dumpster fire pretty entertaining, or at least saw a glimpse of how cool dynamic NPCs could be if developed responsibly, though players felt the AI voice was flat and lacked the emotion of a human actor. I will say one thing though, it's definitely a sign of the times when we're having to qualify a human versus a non-human actor. Now, I want to circle back to what I talked to at the beginning of the video and how AI's influence threatens games media. Let's have a look at how it's also beginning to reshape the world of game journalism itself. Before I dive in, I want to say a big thank you to Christopher Dring and the Game Business, where I sourced key insights from his chat with Perkins Miller, Dan Dawkins, and Alex Donaldson. Seriously, if you're not already following his work, go subscribe and show some support. I'll put a link in the description. Games media, like so many industries, is facing a major shakeup from AI. It brings new and unique challenges and rapid changes, and outlets that fail to adapt quickly risk becoming another casualty, just like countless publications before them. The media landscape is a battle for attention, and AI is amplifying the problem by creating more duplication and distortion, making it increasingly difficult for genuine, quality content to cut through the noise, leading to a rise in unoriginal or sometimes even misleading information. Search engines are a double-edged sword, where they're crucial for driving traffic, yet they now use AI to provide instant answers to simple questions. AI can tell you when a game releases or its price directly on the search page, which reduces site click-throughs, but in-depth and detailed content continues to attract an audience. And funny enough, these same AI platforms can occasionally funnel referral traffic toward those specialist websites. With AI evolving so quickly, media outlets need to stay hyper-vigilant. Their primary concern isn't just AI search summaries, it's AI's power to duplicate and alter content through rewriting and plagiarism, which unfortunately is already a widespread problem. Experts in the space are even predicting that there may be a time where a new media brand quickly gains popularity and builds a trusting audience, only to later realize that their original content was essentially just taking existing articles, using AI for quick rewrites, and slapping their own name on it for a quick buck. But it's not all doom and gloom. AI can absolutely be used in positive and responsible ways, as I touched on earlier, and games media is looking into different ways it can leverage the tech for constructive use in the space. But that obviously doesn't change the fact that if traditional media doesn't adapt and find ways to connect to its audience, then current publications will go the way of so many before them. After exploring AI's dual role in the games industry as both a powerful tool and a disruption, the obvious next question is, what does this all mean for the people actually playing the games? Will this tech ultimately benefit gamers or create new problems? What key things should we be aware of? Right now, there's no shortage of debate around AI, however it's applied. That's why I want to offer a balanced look at what it could mean for gamers. We'll cover the good it could bring, but also address the potential drawbacks, all to help paint a more complete picture. With the latest AI breakthroughs, the ability to craft significantly more immersive and adaptive worlds is opening up not just for major AAA studios, but for indie creators as well. This means that on the plus side for our wallets, if AI can help create richer, more replayable games, think deeper, more autonomous NPCs, or more personalized storylines, we could get significantly more hours of quality gameplay from a single title. That definitely increases a game's perceived value, making its initial cost feel much more justified, especially given the shift in game prices we've seen this year. Some also suggest that AI could trim certain game development costs by an estimated 20 to 30% by helping with things like procedural content generation or quality assurance. If these savings are substantial and competition stays high, it could help stabilize base game prices or even mean more content at current prices. But obviously that's no guarantee, as other development costs might still go up. On the flip side, developing those same impressive AI mechanics for NPCs and dynamic worlds doesn't come cheap. So publishers might pass on these high costs by raising the price of games that heavily feature advanced AI. Or they can make the best AI-driven content exclusive to premium editions, sell it as pricey DLC, or even introduce new paid specialty AI updates to generate revenue. Even then, we'd have to be careful on what's genuinely included in these AI improvements, because companies might have some killer marketing for some minor improvements and toss around terms like revolutionary to hype up minimal AI additions, then try to justify higher prices for features that don't meaningfully upgrade gameplay value. While the upside of AI is the potential for these incredibly rich and responsive game worlds, we also have to look at it from the other side as well. If the focus shifts too heavily towards AI-driven quantity or game development into easily duplicated cookie-cutter formulas, we run the risk of a very different kind of gaming landscape, one filled with content that could be described as hollow, soulless, and repetitive, something that some may argue is already happening. If AI is simply overused or badly done, we'll likely end up with tons of generic lookalike games, which means we could be throwing away money on empty experiences, constantly trying to hunt for a decent game but mostly coming up short, with actual great titles becoming incredibly hard to find. This also won't do subscription services any favors either. They'll be overrun with AI generated slop, and gamers will feel they're not getting their money's worth, leading to cancellations and a feeling of wasted fees. To be honest, we're already seeing hints of this kind of content bloat on the big digital game stores today. Finally, beyond AI just degrading overall game quality, there's the possibility of it being able to actively shape and possibly manipulate how we interact within the games themselves, something I touched on a little bit earlier, but I wanted to add a little bit more color to in this next section. AI's ability for analyzing player behavior opens the door to some very dynamic and hyper-personalized ways to encourage spending. We could see AI systems that perfectly time in-app purchase offers, dynamically adjust prices based on the player's perceived willingness to pay, or even design gameplay that subtly, or not so subtly, pressures you to spend, like an AI nudge for a microtransaction after a tough spot, or offering deals engineered to maximize your spend. The real danger is players spending more than they plan or can manage. It can even go as far as having the AI tailor the gameplay to invent artificial needs or roadblocks, effectively turning optional microtransactions into something that feels necessary just to enjoy the game or progress smoothly. And you're probably thinking that elements of this are already happening, but as AI becomes increasingly sophisticated, its power to almost steer and maybe even coerce gamers into in-game spending will only become more precise and pervasive. Figuring out exactly how AI will affect our wallets is a complex question, and we've only explored some of the possibilities today to avoid making this video excessively long. My main point though is to recognize AI as a double-edged sword, where it could improve game value or even bring cost savings. However, the more pressing concern is its power to drive far more advanced, personalized, and manipulative monetization tactics that could significantly impact our spending habits on the games we enjoy. Now, I don't want this to come off as anti-AI. Far from it, actually. I'm all for advancing tech and seeing gaming and other industries evolve from it. My main point is that we need to stay informed, understanding how these powerful new tools impact our lives and being thoughtful about how we personally engage with and use them. AI is clearly set to reshape gaming in some big ways, bringing both exciting possibilities and some serious challenges for us to think about. I'm really curious to hear what your biggest takeaways are from all of this, or what concerns you most about AI in gaming, or anywhere else for that matter. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you found this discussion insightful, throw a thumbs up on the video. It'll help get this out to more gamers and also helps out the channel. If you want to explore more topics like this, see future deep dives, or have some topics you'd like me to discuss, leave a comment below and subscribe. Until the next one, remember the motto: play more, pay less.